Hello, I'm Eileen Roach, and welcome to today's episode of Between Friends. Thank you for joining me. I am thrilled to be back. I was off last week, so always good to be back in the saddle. I see many of you are piping in. Judy Warren, you were saying hello from Hawaii, and boy, all of the folks out in Hawaii, especially in Maui, are in our thoughts and prayers. I spent my honeymoon in Maui, and I'm sure many other people have also. So lots of wonderful memories on that beautiful island and that beautiful square in Lahaina. So many of you are at the beach. I see a couple of you, somebody's at Fribbs Island in South Carolina. That sounds like fun. One of our viewers is up in Jennifer Alexander, a little humid in Northwest Tennessee. Well, here we are in Texas, and it's still hot. But, you know, we're inside. We're in our sewing room, which is where many of us like to be. And there's always fun in store in the sewing room. And if you're blessed to have air conditioning, then you're comfortable. So today we're going to talk about variegated threads. And it's a topic that I enjoy talking about and I enjoy stitching with. Every time I use a variegated thread, I learn something new about color and value and how to blend all those things together, right? And how to select threads. It's always a challenge when using a variegated thread. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Oh, we have one of our friends, Donna Bond from Somerset, England. Thank you for joining us from across the pond. I don't know what the weather is over there, but it's in the evening anyway, so that's probably a little cooler. And let's see, Carrie, wait, you want to know if I'm going to be at the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show? Well, I'm not teaching there, but you know, at breakfast this morning, I thought about, maybe I should look at flights to Madison. Wouldn't it be fun to walk that show? And if you're not familiar with the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show, that's the quilt show that Nancy Zeman built many years ago. It's a while now. And it's held in Madison. And it is just a fabulous quilt show. Beautiful quilts on display. They always have a top-notch competition. And they also have mini quilts, a category that is a competition for small quilts. So if you're interested, if you're up in Wisconsin in that area, you know, make it an event on your list, on your calendar list to go. So it is, I believe, the weekend after Labor Day. That's usually when it is. But just go, Google the Great Wisconsin Quilt Show, and you'll find it. It's sponsored by PBS, so you can expect the great atmosphere that you get on PBS TV. You're also going to get live at that show. So it is an awful lot of fun, that show. So today we're talking sweet success with variegated thread, how to predict results, how to select the embroidery designs, and then fabric tips. And really the fabric tips are all about colors and value and so forth. So let's go ahead and get started. And, the first tip that I want to share with you is when you have a variegated thread, and if it's a exquisite medley, which is our variegated thread, it's already loaded in embroidery toolshed. So you can preview your embroidery designs right in toolshed, right on the screen in that variegated thread. So let's pop over into software and take a look at how to do this. Now I'm going to this is the free design that comes with your download of embroidery toolshed. So everybody who has embroidery toolshed has this design. And I'm going to show you the first thing I do on any embroidery design that I load into my laptop or into embroidery toolshed is down here in the lower right-hand corner. You'll see a plus and a minus. And I click on that minus sign and it removes all of the excess color chips. So You know, why do I do that? Well, it just kind of keeps my workspace tidy. It lets me know exactly how many colors are in this design. Of course, I can also see that at the top of the screen because it's listed at the very top. It says 6 colors with 9 stops. So that means there's going to be a tie off in in 2 of the different colors as the needle advances to a new area. But it also helps me just identify the colors. I don't have all those chips down there confusing me. So I like to keep it simple. So in Embroidery Toolshed, I'm going to click on the sequence, which is my first tab, and it comes in grouped. So I will right click and ungroup. And now I can select that first color chip, which is this light pink, and it's actually color number 304, pink glaze, and that's in our exquisite 40 weight thread line. So now when I click on that, up pops the palette. And my palette is set for exquisite thread. That's the thread that I use every day in every single embroidery design. So that's my default. But if I click on that drop down arrow and use my slide bar here, you can see all the different palettes. Oh, you aren't seeing that, are you? Okay, so let me go ahead and change my view. So Gloria, maybe you would switch to PowerPoint so I can reshare. Would that be okay? So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'll have to come back in and reshare. Now, just bear with me. I haven't done this in a little bit. So I'm going to share the screen, and now I'm going to share the whole window. There we go. And now you can bring that back up and software. And I think when I now click on that color chip, everyone is going to see, they're still not seeing that. Dang it. Why is that? Oh, you know, best laid plans, right? Well, if you have there you go. Now you can see. So I clicked on Exquisite Medley, and it allowed me to look at only the variegated threads, just the 15 colors that we have, or however many colors there are that we have. And it shows me all the different ones. It selected Cotton Candy because that's the closest one to that light pink color chip that I selected. So I'm going to let that be the default and say okay. And then now you can see what those petals, those beautiful flower petals, are going to look like if I use the variegated thread. It's pretty attractive, right? Not so horrible. So let's just use our undo arrow so we can take a look at what it looked like before. So it's a subtle change, right? It's a subtle change, and it's an attractive change. Let's do something a little bit more drastic and click on the first color chip in the green. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back and find my medley. And this time, I'm going to select the forest green, which is Medley 102. And I'll click that. Okay, and let's do it on the second one, the second color chip, so that you get a better view of exactly what that's going to be. And now you'll see, look how drastic that is. Now, this might be a look that you like to have, right? But at least you know it before you stitch it out. And of course, there are other ways to predict how it will, how it will stitch out. So let's go ahead and go over to the overhead cam, and I'm going to show you another way that you can predict this. So here I have, I'm going to bring up this board where you can see how pretty this stitch out is, right? This is our Taj Mahal font, and this is just a run stitch heart with all of those different lines, those parallel lines that fill that heart. And then I also opted to use the colors that make up this variegated thread, which is number 105, I believe, and all of these colors make it up. So that coordinates very nicely. And that's how our color play kits are created. So let's take a look at what a color play kit is. So here you can see different ways to review how a variegated thread will stitch out. This is a complex fill that has been created with a kind of a hatched effect. So it's not a complex fill in the sense that it's just going to do continuous lines like we would expect, right? You can get that striped look, but by selecting a stitch type like this, it just blends beautifully and places all those little straight stitches to fill an area and just really spread out that color. Here in the interior, I'm going to bring this up even closer so you can see, because I do have tiny run stitches in here. I would call them quilting stitches, right? And here you can see the very light yellow, it goes to the copper and the amber and then the rust and then back again. And again, we have that striped effect when we're on the satin. These solid circles, they are the colors that make up this variegated thread, and that is our number 114. So this is all of the colors that are in that design. In that kit, in that variegated color. And here you can see it on brown, right? It looks totally different on the brown. Selecting your base fabric, and we'll get into that a little bit more, really changes the look of a design. This is actually the same thread collection, but on the aqua, it's much brighter. And here on this dark brown, much more contrast, but easy to see, the different elements that are in the actual variegated thread. So quilting designs are another beautiful way to use variegated threads. You really want to make sure that your fabric has some contrast so you can see all of the different colors. Like in this instance, here we have these really fun pumpkins. And I use the green, but I lose a little bit. Like, see right here, I lose a little bit because that fabric is pretty dark. So, but again, those run stitches, they still pop. They add a lot of interest to the background. And because the only element here are these pumpkins, these 4 pumpkin shapes, and all the beautiful stitching is really the background, but it becomes the focal point of the embroidery design. So lots of different ways to predict how it will stitch out. So also in our software, we have fonts that have been digitized specifically for our variegated thread. So let's switch over to software so you could take a look at that. And we have 6 different elements. So I'm going to zoom in on these so you get a closer look. So here we have the Asbury Run. That's the first one. Bridgeton. Now, what's lovely about this is all that thread buildup in this area really will display the variegated thread. So I need to change that into a variegated thread so you can see exactly how that's going to stitch. So let's go ahead and do this Rio. That's a Carnival, it's called. And then when I stitch off, notice now how you really see that variety of thread and how lovely that is. Sketchbook is another really fun one. And so that is just stitched, shown on the screen in black. So let's go ahead and select maybe the sunset. That's fun. And now you can see all the different colors that would appear and how that sketchbook would actually stitch out. Wingtips looks beautiful in both variegated thread and also in a solid thread. So I have, one of the problems about this font is you can't select the individual elements. So you have the frame of the A and this scalloped area that's all in the variegated thread. And then this gray stripe is a solid color that you will stitch. And then the polka dot on top can be another color. In this instance, it's picking up on the sunset. That's just a software thing. So let's forget about that. And here we have Waffle. Waffle is a really fun font, comes in upper and lowercase, and it's been digitized to kind of give it a look like like kind of like camouflage in the sense that you really can't see where one color starts and the other one stops. It just blends beautifully. Taj Mahal was really intended to be solid colors, but the framework looks awesome in a variegated thread, and then use coordinating solids for the other elements, those decorative stitches inside the frame. So let's see, we have a question here from a Facebook user who says, when you buy the variegated, does it tell you the solid colors of the exquisite thread? It does not tell us that when you buy the individual spool, but this week we have color play kits on sale, really reasonably priced. I'm going to go over that in just a minute. And you get all 5 spools. So you get the variegated spool and you get the 4 solid spools that make up that color. So yeah. Okay, so let's see what is next. We're going to start embroidery toolshed, design selection, and we kind of looked at fonts. So let's look at that font live. Let me pull this out of the way for now. And because I did stitch these out, I thought you would really enjoy seeing them. So as you can see, now I did this in Summer Berries, I believe, this Asbury Run. And then the Brighton I did in the Amber. And then this is Rio and Sunset, and I think this is Rio again. So we did both of these designs in Rio. And then here's our denim blues with a solid blue behind the polka dot. And you can see the variegated, you really begin to see the stripe effect in this kind of scallop detail here. And have a lot of different fun with these, right? Really a lot of different fun. And on this one, on software, I showed you that the Taj Mahal, the outline could be stitched in the variegated with solids inside. But in this instance, I did the reverse. So I used the bold fuchsia color that is included in this variegated thread and for the frame. And then for the actual feathery, this beautiful stitch, I used the Sunset Medley to fill that in. And boy, that really gives it a pop of color, doesn't it? I love that. Really fun. So let's see, Carolyn Marrow wants to know, are the variegated thread fonts in Embroidery Toolshed? Well, Carolyn, you know, Embroidery Toolshed is a free program. So that's a free download, and it does not include fonts. You have to purchase them separately. But in Embroidery Toolshed, which of course houses all of our other software programs, you'll find Word Art and Stitches and Perfect Embroidery Pro. And those 2 programs have all of the fonts. So it has those variegated fonts that you can find. But the palette of the exquisite medley thread, the variegated threads, is included in Embroidery Toolshed, just like all those other thread companies that you saw. They're all in there. And you'll be able to preview your designs with that. So pretty cool. Okay, so what else do we want to move on to? So I think next up, we're going to move over to fabric. So let's do that. Let's take a look at, I have some fun fabric things. First off, I'll give you some advice on working with these variegated threads. Let me clean up, get some of these trays out of here. And I'll bring in, this is a beautiful design that you're just going to love. It is this feather design. Look at it. And I positioned that like in a color wheel. So I'm going to pick these up one by one. We'll start with the white one first. And you can see each of these feathers are a different variegated thread. Just gorgeous. So I kind of mimicked the color wheel. I didn't follow it exactly, but pretty close. And I stitched this very same design on white fabric, and then gray fabric, and then, of course, black, to see what would pop the most. What would I have the most success with? And, you know, each feather looks a little different, right? On the white, this pops the most because it has the most contrast to the white, right? The green also pops really nicely, and so does Summer Berries. Some of these lighter ones, they're just a little more delicate on the white. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just something for you to remember as you are using these threads, what are you going for? Are you trying to draw attention to it, or are you just, adding texture to an embroidery design? Now, on the gray, most of them are really visible, right? Most of the elements of those feathers are really, really beautiful and visible. So, gray is kind of a safe color, or, a medium value, right? Like, let's not forget that this is really all about value. And of course, on the black, everything is just jumping off the page except this one, right? That's a little dark. I mean, you can see it for sure, but it's a little dark. As we move away from the camera, the further we get, the less visible it is. So how can you tell when you are working on regular fabrics? Well, there's a couple tools. One is what's called a value finder, and it's just a piece of red plastic that you can use to view through. And I have some glare going through here, so I'll try to do it so you can't. But as I hold that over the feather, as you can see, this feather here is really separating. See how you can see it from the gray fabric? Well, this red plastic panel removes the color from the embroidery thread and just allows you to see the value. So now when I move over the purple, this deep purple, look, you can't really see that feather at all. You can barely see that inside there. So this is a very helpful tool. And for people who have trouble selecting colors, a value finder is helpful, because really it's all about the value, truly, not so much the color. You have to understand that. Here are some stitch outs that I've done over time that show the very same embroidery design or stitch type over 3 different values of fabric, right? So we have the white. This is really a dark gray. This is a little too dark for my taste. And then, of course, the black. But, I mean, it works. It's giving you the idea. You can see where some range of the variegated is really visible and others are not. And we have that, I think, for almost every single one. So here's that purple that you see, that purple pansy, that was the feather that was stitched. And here's Summer Berries, 107. Isn't that gorgeous? I love that. This is Denim Blues and Forest Greens and Salt and Pepper. So really a lot of fun, a lot of fun. Now, this is great when you're on solids, right? But we're not always working on solids. So let's take a look at some fabrics. Let's start with this set. Okay, so this is our Summer Berries. Well, you know what? Before we get to this, let's go over to PowerPoint so you can see what we're talking. Oh, how lovely. Tina, hi. So she's from my hometown of Wildwood Crest. What lovely comment. Thank you so much. It was a beautiful place to grow up. I still have family there. And thanks for joining me here. It's lovely to see you here. Okay, so Jean Timmerman, you want to know, can you change the size of the font? Oh, yes. In our embroidery software, you betcha. And we'll go back in and take a look at that, okay? Well, we could do that right now. I'm sure my sweet Gloria won't mind taking me back into the software. So let's go ahead and take this Bridgeton, and I'm going to do copy, new file, and paste. And I'll turn that into realistic view. Okay, so look, I can shrink that down. What am I worried about here? Well, it most certainly changes the thread count. So right now I'm at 195. Let's go back so you can see where it was. And that it was at 488. So it's taking out stitches. It's definitely taking out stitches. Now, everybody here will tell you, all the technical people will say, you really should only size 20%. And that's a good rule of thumb. And the main reason, well, there's many reasons, but in the C2S format, in our software, you can go beyond that. You just have to remember the art is not going to change. The stitch count will change, the stitch length will change, but not the artwork. So, going small on this design works well. What if we get really, really big? Really, really big. Like now I'm at, let's change over to inches. I'm at a 7, almost a 7-inch letter. So, you're going to have a lot of open space in that A, right? It's going to be a lot of open, plain space if you're doing a big monogram. It might not be the best choice for a large design artistically. Will it stitch and be beautiful? Yeah, it will stitch and be beautiful. But again, you're going to have some open space that you probably maybe didn't like. So yeah, but let's go take, okay, well, here's a Home Sweet Home. So this is a great example. Let's just take Sweet Home, paste that in there. Okay, what size is this? So this is long. It's 11.5 inches long, but it's only 186. So let's zoom in and take a look. This is multiple rows of run stitches, and we digitized it in this fashion so it would showcase the medley thread. So it would really give it an area to fill and yet not overlap over itself so that you could see each line of stitching. So what happens when we enlarge that? Well, you're still going to get, well, let's make it wider this way. You're still going to get those beautiful stitches. It's just now those lines may be a little bit further apart, but still very effective, right? And now we are up to 25 inches in width and 5 3/4 in height. So will that stitch beautifully? Absolutely, absolutely. So have fun with the fonts. Have some fun. Let's see. What's the difference between changing it on a laptop? Okay, so Judith, you want to know, what's the difference between changing it on a laptop instead of in your actual embroidery machine, size-wise? What's the difference? It's everything. When you are working in our software with what we call the native format, so that's the format that the design was digitized in, then you have the freedom to enlarge and shrink that design almost as much as you want. On a machine, in a machine format, it's totally different. The machine can add some machines can add some stitches and pull some out, but it's going to lengthen the stitch. It's just, you're going to lose the integrity of the design. It's a different type of format. Like in photography, you have a JPEG design, a JPEG image, which we all take in on our cell phones and so forth, and they're okay, except that when you blow them up, they don't look that great. But if you use the raw file on a camera and you enlarge that, then you have the freedom to do that. So kind of getting out of my area expertise. Why shrink? Let's see. When I shrink the font, why do I get a rat's nest on the back? Well, Sheila, where are you shrinking the font? Is that in our software, and are you shrinking the C2S format? So you can't stitch a design in PES, like let's say, or JEF, and take it back into our software and resize it. You've lost the integrity of the design. So in our software, you can resize any C2S file without getting a rat's nest on the back. I promise you that. Carolyn, is there a key in the font files that indicates it's good for variegated? There is not, and I apologize for that. Maybe we can get that color coded. I'll ask here if we could do that. And if that happens, when there's an update, that wonderful thing will happen in your software. So I'll see if we can do that. Yes to both of your, well, Sheila, now I forget what I asked you. So you are resizing in C2S? I really don't know, because I have not had that experience when I resized in C2S. Now, again, let's go back to these flowers, right? So jump over to software. Okay, so this design that came with the download of Embroidery Toolshed, this is 6 inches by 4 inches. So how much can I resize this? Here is a good example of 20% would be appropriate. So I'm going to undo that. And then over in the properties box, I'm going to just hit 80%. Okay. And it will change it proportionately 80%. that would be my limit in an embroidery design like that, because this was drawn, sketched, and then digitized in this fashion where all those petals and stems and leaves are really close together. And so that's why I can only go 20%, because software can't change the art in a design like this. And if I were to increase this, let's go, we'll go back to its original 100%. And now let's go up to 150 and see what happens. So again, now if I took a ruler and measured this, you have a lot more open space between these elements. So you could definitely do that. Oh yes, and Reen Wilcoxon to my rescue here. Hi Reen, she's our good friend from Embroidery Garden. So what she is telling us is that in our software, with the fonts, you have a recommended size. So she's right, you do. So if you hover your mouse over the window where it says wingtips, and for some reason, our broadcast program, what we're broadcasting to you, is not showing you this window. But if you hover your mouse over there, it's telling me all of the characters that are available in this font. So upper, lowercase, all of the different digits, the punctuation, and it says the recommended height range is 2.7, between 2.7 and 3.5. So if I open up the font menu, you can see all the different choices. That's not where it's going to give you the size recommendation. And so here's my good friend Gary Gardner, who also to the rescue. He's saying the biggest issue with sizing is in the satin stitches. If the satin stitches get less than 2 millimeters or bigger than 10 millimeters, there would be an issue actually at your machine, right? So at 2 millimeters, that needle is just going to pound pretty much over top of itself. 2 millimeters is really tiny, so you're going to get a tremendous amount of thread buildup. At 10 millimeters, some machines won't even do 10 millimeters, right? Some are limited to 9, some are limited to like 10 or 11 or 12. So, but they're going to be too wide and they'll get snagged on during wear and tear of the garment. It may stitch, but you probably can't, use the item. So let's see. Okay, so Ellen Buck, she says she's found that if she sizes on a machine, she only does a very small amount, like a 1/4 inch, to make a design fit in a hoop, which, yeah, and that should work, right? But again, 20% is your rule of thumb. That's the best guidance. Okay, so now let's take a look at why we're here, because we're talking about color, we're talking about variegated thread, right? So over in PowerPoint, you'll see that today's special is these color play kits. Check this out. 5 colors in a kit for only $20.75. Variegated thread is very expensive. And in these kits, we are including the solid colors that come with it. Yep. And let's see, the Facebook user wants to know, how do you click on the font catalog? Just click on that thumbnail of the font. So let's see if we can go back into software and show you that. So when I clicked on that, the image of the font, let's close it out again. So here you can see where I'm hovering my mouse, and then I left click, and there brings up the entire catalog of fonts. So the ones that are in red or purple are our newer fonts, and the gold ones are the ones that came with your original purchase, and these new ones were added as an upgrade. So this is a thumbnail of the images. You can, if you know the name of your font, or you just want to look at specific types of fonts, then you can use this slide bar. And yeah, and you can't see that drop down. But just know that if you click on this arrow, it will give you a list. And with a code, it will have an F next to it. Let me move to one like our micro fonts. Now you can see that tiny little gold M. So that's telling you it's a micro font. Okay. And let's see, Margaret Starr, you have those kits and you love them. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. They are really fun to work with, aren't they? So some of our color play or our medleys are a collection of colors, and some are monochromatic, like the Carlsbad and Savannah are a collection of different colors, right? Savannah has those beautiful pastels. I always think of, baby clothing for that. Seattle is 4 different greens. And let's see, the Rio collection, again, is 4 different colors, as where the Paris collection is really, I would call that a monochromatic. And also with the Madison collection, it's just lovely colors, really lovely colors. And then Carmel, again, is another, that's, yellow, orange, brown. I'm going to call that monochromatic because it's, kind of staying in that color family, along with the Sedona and the Logan collection also. So, okay, so let's take a look at the fabric that I wanted to share with you and some tips on how you can select these fabrics and threads. Well, how you can use your fabric to select your thread. So I'm going to bring this up so you can get a really good look at it. So as you know, many fabrics, not all, but many fabrics have these color chips here that are designating the dye that was used to create this beautiful print. And of course, this gorgeous print is from Kay Fawcett, Free Spirit Fabrics, just beautiful. But look how our Summer Berries collection, our medley, goes beautifully with this. So here we have an orange spool, picks up that orange chip, the light pink, picks up that light pink, this robust, beautiful pink, and the russet. And then when you blend them all together, that's going to be really successful. So if I was making a quilt and I wanted to add texture to this fabric and not really have a thread overpower the fabric, then I would definitely use this variegated thread, because it would just blend beautifully. Sometimes it would disappear in a color and sometimes it would contrast, but it would all go together. So, that's just, these are a really valuable tool that you have right in your sewing room, and you should use those little color chips on your fabrics for selecting thread. So what do you do if your fabric doesn't have that? Well, here we have a choice here. So I was going to show. So here is a designer who makes these mosaic fabrics, and I really like these fabrics. Someday, I started collecting these when I was doing the small town charms, and I thought, oh, these would make great uses in some of the houses and so forth, and actually never really used it. But here we have our this would be the collection of the color play kits that I would use to embellish these. And here's the threads that come with that. So I could use any of these threads. I could use the medley on any of these 4 different colorways. And if I wanted high contrast on the lighter one, then I would go with the russet. And I would also maybe use that on this orange if I wanted high contrast. On this darker brown, maybe I would use that yellow chiffon to get contrast. Or if I want to blend, then that would work. And the chiffon would work on there. But knowing that this medley would work on any of them tells me that, that's a great collection for me to work with. Now, believe it or not, I opened up these fabrics thinking there would be color chips in the selvage, and there isn't. It's just information on, the manufacturer, Hoffman Fabrics, but for some reason there is no color chips on them. And then, of course, your batiks, right? Beautiful fabrics. We often use these for lots of applique and so forth. There is, never has color chips because it's actually dyed all the way through. It's not screen printed. But a variegated thread like that would just be gorgeous on this. Sometimes, again, it would be hidden in these darker fabrics or, blend beautifully. So that's just a good way to incorporate fabric. Of course, you could stitch it out, a sample. If you're working on a quilt, that's really a big project, you most certainly could stitch it out. And here's another example of, another cave faucet. Now, this is a wild fabric, right? If you're familiar with his fabrics, you know they're usually really big, colorful prints. And I love it. I just love it, his work. They're beautiful. So I selected this dark blue as my solid. And then I stitched out this variegated sunset on the blue. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is, we have to remember that embroidery is usually a small scale, right? Look how tiny these little scallops are on the bottom. Let me move this strip here so you can see. I mean, they're really tiny, right? Compared to the huge scale of this fabric. But sometimes in quilting, we're only incorporating a small piece of fabric, so you never really see the entire scale of the fabric. You're just getting the glory of all those different colors, right? So to use a medley thread that pulls all the colors of a fabric is a really successful way to marry your embroidery and your print fabric. So definitely a lot of fun, all those fabrics. Okay, so let's see. Barbara Jones, you didn't win the lottery. I know, I have a couple sisters in Florida. The winner was in Florida, and my one sister wasn't answering my call, and I thought, oh, she must have won, but no, she didn't. So anyway, so I hope you learned an awful lot about the medley and working with medley and how you can incorporate it into your embroidery. And don't forget that today is all on special. It's only $20.75 for 5 spools of thread. That's like just a little over $4. It's a really good time to build up your thread stash at this low price. Instead of just getting one kit, I would think of my feather rainbow, my color wheel that I showed you. It's really nice to have a stash of the entire color wheel so that no matter what fabric you're working on, you'll have a kit of medley threads and solids that go with it. So let's go ahead and take a look at those wheels again, because you'll see, I mean, for how many are in here? 6, right? Or 8? Yeah, 8. So easy to fill out your thread stash. So this is 8 different medley threads. And of course, if you bought the kit of each one, that's 8 times 5 is 40 spools of thread. And, it's pretty $160. That's not bad. That is not bad. So you would have some fun with that. Okay, so maybe we're going to tell you what's coming up. I'm going to share the on-the-house design, and then I'm going to jump back into software so you can get that same look on the color wheel like I did. So let's see, what's next? Well, on August 15th, Ashley Jones will be doing Patch and Applique Maker Part 2. So if you missed Part 1, that was just the other day, jump back in there and jump back over to YouTube or Facebook and watch Part 1. Boy, she's amazing. She's always so much fun. And she brings great energy and beautiful samples to every presentation that she gives. So don't miss Ashley on August 15th, and she'll be in Patchmaker 2. And if you don't want to miss any of our upcoming broadcasts, this is how you can be notified.
In this video, we'll show you how to subscribe to a YouTube channel and follow a Facebook page. Let's start with YouTube. First, open your web browser and navigate to youtube.com. Once you're on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Click on it and go to the channel page. Once on the channel page, click the subscribe button. And that's it. You're now subscribed to the channel. Now, let's move on to Facebook. Once you're on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. When you find the page you want to follow, click on it and go to the page. Once on the page, click the 3 dots on the right side and select the follow button. And that's it. Now you're following the page. Thanks for watching.
Okay, next Thursday on the 17th, I'll be back at 1 o'clock and I'm going to be talking all about patches. And I have a guest. Deborah Jones is going to join me. I'm so excited. We are just going to do patches galore. And you know, Deborah, wow, she brings such a technical aspect to embroidery. I learned so much from her every time that we stitch together or do a Facebook Live together. And we'll talk about the right materials to use, how to fuse patches permanently, temporarily, or how to attach patches permanently or temporarily, and how you can do it on almost anything. So much fun, I know. Okay, so it's time for On the House. We want to see what you've been stitching, so let's take a look.
We would love to see any creations you all make with our free On the House designs. To do that, we have to be able to find your designs first. Go to Facebook and create a new post for your latest project. Make sure that your post is set to public view and add a quick description and photo of what you've made. Now the important part, adding your hashtags. You're going to want to use hashtag On the House, hashtag Dime Sew Along, and hashtag Exquisite Thread. And that's it. Now you can click post.
We love to see your design, so please follow those instructions. And Joan Shriver wanted to know, are my earrings done with variegated thread? They most certainly are. That is cotton candy. Isn't it pretty? And my good friend Annette Yeager, who works here at Dime, she made them for me, spoiled me. So I love wearing them when I wear pink. Okay, this week's design is that beautiful feather, and it looks gorgeous in medley. So why don't I show you how you can make that color wheel just like I did in our software. So this is, I'm using not just Embroidery Toolshed, okay? I have Perfect Embroidery Pro activated, and this feature is also available in some of our other programs like My Quilt Embellisher probably. Okay, so let's head over to the software, and you can see, right now I am going to select this, and I've removed that color chip, right? So I'm going to select my design, go up to carousel, and I'm going to shrink down that wheel to 5 inches. And the default, just so you know, is 8 repeats, which is exactly what I want my end result to be. But actually right now, I'm going to make it 4. And I'll show you why in a minute. So I'm going to click apply and okay. And now they come in as one big group. So I'm going to right click on group and select ungroup. And now I'm going to select each individual one and group it. And click on the color chip to add a different color. So I'm going to recolorize that. And I'm going to do the same thing here, group it, add another color chip, colorize that, and one more time, group, add a chip, and colorize that. Okay, so why did I do that? Well, you're going to see why, because in a minute, I'm going to select all 4, and I'm going to rotate that wheel. And then I can take the time to recolor them into the medley colors. If I had all 8 and ungrouped them, you have difficulty grabbing just one feather, right? Because you just do, and then you're grabbing portions of another feather and so forth. So this just makes it super easy. Each one is grouped individually, and especially that top one, we have to group that because we didn't do that. All right, so now we're going to select them all. We don't want to save it. We want to select all, Control A, Control C for copy, Control V for paste, rotate that 1 turn, and there you have it. So now I'm going to add 4 more color chips to give me 8, and I'm just going to start changing them up to the medley. And, one by one, right? There we'll do summer berries on one. We'll select another one. And, this just takes a minute. But, if you're like me, this is, kind of what you like to do, right? I mean, this almost feels like sewing. It's not, but we kid ourselves that it is, right? It is productive time. I learn every time I do this. So, okay, so now we're getting there, right? We just have a couple more to colorize. And then you can decide the order that you'll actually stitch it in so that, you can get it to mimic a color wheel, right? And one more time. And, you don't even have to do this because if you have your threads lined up in front of your sewing machine, you're picking the thread, but it is often very helpful to preview it in software. Okay, and this one last one, we will change to that pansy color, which is so pretty. Here we go. Pansy patch, and there you have it. Okay, a couple might be too similar, but that's how easy it was. That's how easy it was. So, you can rewatch this program if you want to know how to, make a carousel like that. Now, Margaret Starr, you want to know, where do you get the feather? The feather is our free on the house download today. So just jump over to our website and download that design. We give a design away every week, every Thursday, and they are there for the entire year. So, Margaret, if you haven't been downloading them, go on over there and help yourself to all the previous designs. And you should try to do it every week and stay on top of it because at the end of the year, they all go away as we refresh the program for the next year. So take advantage of it now while it's there. If you have used or if you use our Embroidery Toolshed program, every time you open it, it shows you the free design for the week. Let me go back into software so you can see that. And maybe it'll come up. I don't know if it will. Let's see. Today. Okay, there you go. See, when you go into your software right now, you'll see that free design. We just updated that moments ago. So yeah, it's a gorgeous feather and it looks best in medley thread. So get yours today. Thanks for joining me and we'll see you next week. All About Patches coming up next Thursday.